Democratic People's Republic of Korea has passed a new law calling for automatic nuclear launches if the country is judged to be threatened. DPRK's leader Kim Jong-un said the law made its nuclear status irreversible. The legislation enshrines DPRK's right to use preemptive nuclear strikes to protect itself. What exactly does it mean, and what has prompted the DPRK to take this move? It obviously makes resolving the Korean Peninsula nuclear issue more challenging, but who holds the key? I'm pleased to be joined from Beijing by Rong, Vice President of the China Institute of International Studies, and from Washington, D.C. by Jenny Town, Senior Fellow at Stimson Center, a policy and research organization focused on international security issues. She's also director of its 38 North program, which provides researches and analysis of events in and around the DPRK. So welcome to both of you. Ms. Town, let me go to you first. The new law is replacing a previous law passed in 2013, and according to the country's news agency KCNA, the official news agency, in case the command and control system over the state nuclear forces is placed in danger owing to an attack by hostile forces, a nuclear strike shall be launched automatically and immediately to destroy the hostile forces. What are the most significant changes compared to 2013?
Well, this new law, first of all, really does pose the nuclear program in a much more mature manner. The 2013 law still had a lot of language that was really meant to justify the nuclear program. That is not here in this law. This is much more talking about actual doctrine, talking about command and control, which is solely in Kim Jong-un's hands, apparently advised by some members of the State Affairs Commission, and with the new clause that you just mentioned of automatic launch in case he or that commission is put into jeopardy due to an attack. We also see a number of different conditions under which they would consider preemptive use as well, which really brings a lot of uncertainty to the situation, especially about North Korea's ability to get actual credible intelligence and what that threshold will be for considering what would be an imminent attack. So there's a lot here to chew on and a lot to be concerned of, although they did say in the law itself that their goal is really to avoid war, and that nuclear use would still be a last choice.
Mr. Rong, the adoption of laws and regulations related to the national nuclear force policy is a remarkable event, as it's our declaration that we legally acquired war deterrence as a means of national defense. That's what Kim Jong-un said during a speech to the Supreme People's Assembly on September. What does he mean? Have the conditions changed dramatically under the new law?
Well, it is true. I think if we compared the law in 2013, I think this law, the new law, goes further in finding and justification and the circumstances where North Korea, DPRK, would use nuclear, would develop and use nuclear weapons for self-defense. And it is also true that if you look at the circumstances, look at the conditions, 5 conditions in which nuclear weapons will be used for deter or repel invasions or attacks by nuclear states or non-nuclear states in certain circumstances, is very much in a way, again, a continuation of the argument that is meant for self-defense. And it is also true, I think, the threshold of using nuclear weapons from North Korea's perspective now is becoming vague and lower, and also, I think, more uncertain. And the last point I would make is that it also, the new law makes the point that North Korea wanted to make case that it is a responsible, self-claimed nuclear state. So if you look at the new law, the first few paragraphs very much focus on the North Korea's intention to oppose any forms of war, to prevent the miscalculations, misuse of nuclear wars, and also the question of nuclear non-proliferation. And I think all in all, it's a direct response to the recent development by South Korea, which is the new government, and also on the one hand, it has expressed some overtures for engagement and dialogue, but also it takes some steps on the other hand on military side, for example, kill chain strategy that would target the nuclear facilities and even the command control centers. And last but not least, I think the recent development beyond the region, where the United States and its allies are very much focusing on developing the other strategic sort of weapon or capability, which makes North Korea feel more vulnerable, more threatened.
Right. Jenny, let me go to you. In August, as Mr. Rong mentioned, the United States joined the Republic of Korea in the largest military drills in recent years, potentially targeting the DPRK. The drills, renamed Wolchi Freedom Shield, was the first in 4 years. Now, some Western media claim these drills were necessary because of China's heightened military activities over Taiwan and DPRK's weapons test. Are these the real reasons? Do you see the new law as a reaction to these drills and possibly other signals that have been sent from South Korea and Washington?
Certainly, the resumption of the U.S.-ROK joint military exercises is a reflection of the broader geopolitical situation and the idea that the region itself is getting more dangerous. There is an arms race going on in East Asia right now. We did not make progress on denuclearization of North Korea, even though we had the high-level summitry. And the reality is that the U.S. and South Korea have a very complicated, complex structure that does need to be exercised, especially to be able to be ready to have close coordination and cohesion, as there's a lot of moving parts with these combined forces in the case of conflict. So I think there are actual military reasons why that really underlie some of the exercises as they've gone on. They've been mainly tabletop exercises in the past few years to allow for the diplomatic process to move forward. But since diplomacy is not ongoing and the situation is getting worse, certainly there are reasons to exercise. As Mr. Rong said, there's also South Korea has been talking a lot about kill chain and the use of preemption, the doctrine of preemption under new President Yoon. And I do think the timing of what we're seeing right now with North Korea, with this new law coming out and with the real emphasis also on preemption and also on consequences of targeting the government, is a response to the rhetoric that has come out of South Korea this year.
Now, the United States has said that since the beginning of the Biden administration that its policy regarding the DPRK remains unchanged, that it has no hostile intent toward the country and it continues to seek diplomacy and is prepared to meet without preconditions. But has the U.S. policy on the DPRK really remained unchanged? I mean, can these words be matched with actions? What is really in the United States' interest, to see the situation being resolved or to keep the status quo, meaning to keep the water boiling?
Well, I don't think the U.S. Policy has changed. It really is, they've stated there's no hostile intention, but certainly they are still committed to the defense of South Korea and the defense of the United States as well, if threats are posed to it. They've been open to dialogue. The North Koreans have been unresponsive. But the U.S. is also not really offering much as to, a compelling reason for the North Koreans to come to dialogue, especially when the political situation and the larger strategic situation is getting worse. And so I think, while the U.S. policy hasn't really changed, South Korea's policies has. And because of that, it does create tensions in the region. It creates greater tensions in the relationships, both inter-Korean and U.S. DPRK, the failure of the Hanoi summit and the U.S. DPRK diplomatic processes before are going to be very hard to overcome, and especially while the political situation continues to go in the wrong direction.
Mr. Rong, yeah, China's permanent representative to the UN, Mr. Zhang Jun, has said that the peninsula situation has developed to what it is today primarily due to the flip-flop of U.S. policies, its failure to uphold the results of previous dialogues, and its disregard for the reasonable concerns of the DPRK. So maybe verbally the United States says, or the Biden administration says, it hasn't changed its DPRK policy, but it did restart the military drills, which the largest and the first in 4 years, different from under the Trump administration. So is it really in the Biden administration's interest to see the issue being resolved, being worked on?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that it is really the key to the current possible sort of round of new tension out of the recent developments. And the United States, the Biden administration did, when it took over, that had a policy review, came up with the conclusion that it would adopt a kind of collaborated and practical approach to the issues. Unfortunately, I think for a lot of observers and analysts, I think this is no different from the strategic patience of the Obama administration. And more importantly, from DPRK's perspective, I think in the wake of the summit diplomacy, I think the previous administration, the Trump administration, DPRK has made some taken some steps, concrete steps, and also pledges on the question of denuclearization. But that's never been, from the North Korean's perspective, being reciprocated.
Okay.
So the overtones are there.
All
Unfortunately, the Biden administration didn't come up with concrete things.
We have to leave it there. Many thanks to Mr. Rong and Ms. Jenny Town joining us for this discussion. By the way, China's Ministry of Foreign Affairs spokesman has said China will bear in mind the larger interest of upholding peace and stability on the peninsula and continue to play a positive role in promoting the political settlement of the issue.